Check. Yeah,
Yeah, great.
I think so.
This is a great podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so we are here with some of the performers that's going to be at the EJC 2025. They're going to have a full show. They are a trio. They're all Australian, and one of them is actually not a juggler. And also, Lewis Kennedy has seen them before, and when he saw them, it was not at a juggling convention.
Correct.
So we're here with Escalate, and welcome to Byron and Richard.
Yeah.
Hey,
Good to see you guys.
Nice to see you guys.
You too. So we're not here with Sam, but I guess that Byron, you could start telling us about the trio. What do you guys do? Do you do different things, or how does the group operate?
Well, Richard and I have worked together for 12 years now, I think.
Wow, bloody hell.
But yeah, we were making a trio show with Joe Fisher as well. But then he got the contract in Vegas. So then we decided to hire Sam, who had previously worked with Joe. And Sam's an amazing musician who can juggle a bit. And now he can actually juggle quite well.
Oh, so maybe he is.
Yeah,
a juggler now.
Yeah, he got, within a year of working with us, he got 100 catches of 5 balls. So
Wow.
pretty crazy. Yeah. But anyway, the show's called Escalate. It's an hour show that combines music and lighting design and really cool juggling.
Wow.
At least I think so.
Who is the boss? Or could that start an argument?
Richard, you know the answer to this.
No, actually, honestly, I think about this a lot because that question still haunts me. These children asked us, and I feel like we all just like naturally find out like I'm the boss of this one thing, and then we just do that one thing. Very spread load.
Cool.
Yeah, we were teaching a workshop to a bunch of 10-year-olds, and a kid just raises his hand mid-sentence and goes, "Which one of you is the boss?" And we all just go, We had no idea how to answer that. Because, no, we're very collaborative.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so Richard, I would like you to answer. What can we as viewers on EJC expect from this show? What can we expect to see?
I guess like the main thing I would say to like prime potential audiences is a lot of the juggling is not necessarily conventional technique.
Okay.
Like because a lot of our starting points were centralized around the lighting or the music and sound, it's kind of coming in from a different entry point. Like technique and relatable juggling technique is of course there and it's understandable, but there's like, you know, because we use the source for one act where like the balls are the instruments in the same way that like a chuck is the instrument.
Okay.
Or like some clubs are the instrument. But then there's also sections where we do like the juggling that is like synchronized with the music, kind of, which is a more classic kind of thing, but it's like literally like moment for moment synchronized. And then there's juggling that it like has the vibe of the music, or the music is playing and following our juggling in real time because we have Sam as a live musician. So there's kind of, that's the main thing I would like think about as a juggler coming in to view our show, is like you're going to see kind of all of the different angles of the relationship that juggling and music can have, and what kind of leads and follows, and how they kind of behave together and what that leads to.
Yeah, would you say that it kind of usually starts with the music and then you get into the juggling? Or does it is it different from act to act within the show?
It's definitely different act to act because of the nature of like how that relationship is. Like, I mean, when we're making the juggling with the props, it's like synchronized, right? Like the music and the props are happening at the same time. But then there's other things where there's like an act that Byron and I created expecting to do it to playback, and it didn't really work out. So then we're like, okay, can we have like live music from Sam where he's like reacting to the changes as we do them?
Also reacting to the juggling.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
Cool.
And then, yeah, there's like another scene that we made. We were in a room with Sam with like the soundboard, and we were like building it throw by throw with the corresponding sound. So like we kind of come at it from like music's the leader, juggling's the leader, and then also like they're both like kind of chunking through together.
Amazing. And the third thing, Byron, because I also heard that it was mentioned lighting. Like, how does this fit in together with the music and the juggling?
Well, we got a lighting designer, and they were really good. And we came in with a few really cool ideas, and then they improved them. But mostly we used the lights to focus the attention onto really small juggling, because there's a whole scene where we're just tapping balls from hand to hand to make rhythms. And we didn't want the whole stage to be lit up, and so the audience could get distracted by everything. We wanted them to really focus in. So the only thing that's lit up in that routine is our hands. So there's these really stark rectangles on stage, and we're just tapping balls between each other, between our hands. And that's one example. Another example is there's one of the opening routines, Sam's just playing guitar in this box of light. And we're then coming in and interacting with him while he's playing guitar with juggling. But you don't see us very often. We just kind of swoop in, do a few things, and then swoop out. So a lot of the concepts for the acts started with the idea of lighting, and then we would introduce the juggling, or we'd do the juggling and be like, okay, what's a way of framing this with lighting to make it aesthetic, or to make it more interesting, or make it more appealing to an audience?
Wow. I'm wondering, Byron, how, since you're doing this in the in a country far away from where you live, and how are you able to get all of the necessary machines and stuff all the way over to EJC? How much do you need?
We have 9 road cases, I think.
Lights.
Sorry, I think it's 6 road cases and then our 3 bits of luggage. So it's 9 pieces of luggage, 6 road cases.
Is the road cases lights?
No, they're bang on 24 kilos, which is normally the limit for flights.
No, not light.
Lighting
L-I-G.
They are light. Are they light?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just hold this ball of light. No, yes, most of it is the set, which is lit up. Yeah.
Wow.
It is light.
I'm wondering, Richard, how has the creation process been in total? Because now I hear that it's kind of many different acts, but this is a full show. Did you start with just, let's make one act, let's make another one, and then just putting them in an order that makes sense? Or did you start with the whole show in mind? How was it made?
Okay, well, this is like a fun one to answer. Yeah, putting them in an order that makes sense. That was a tough process, because it's not a narrative or anything like that. Obviously, it's like in an abstract world where the juggling is the kind of primary language. So there wasn't, we had to do a lot of thinking once we had all the pieces. But basically, like, if I could like make the long story of how we made the show short, is we did a residency just at the end of 2019 where we developed some stuff and worked with Sam, but in just like to get some ideas to play with music. But by that point, we had known that Joe was gonna head off, so we were a bit like lost. But then we planned to move ahead, just Byron and I, and we knew we wanted it to be like driven by music and sound. And then the old COVID-19 happened, And so Joe, Byron, and myself were just on like the Zoom every day, like discussing like potential technical concepts. And so then we were like on the Zoom, just in our living rooms or whatever, jamming out and trying to just make technique and content within these technical concepts. And then as like, you know, this process lasted a while, restrictions started to lift, and then we could start, Byron and I could meet physically in a park and like start doing our, like training the skills together and stuff like this. And then we started to like find these kind of pockets of technique or concept that had enough meat to kind of make a thing. And so then we kind of fleshed that out over the couple of years or whatever the COVID-19 thing took over for us in Melbourne. And then we were like trying to make some new pieces with the clubs with the instruments, and Sam we'd hired to like compose that music for us. And like, unrelated to this, but he like stumbled onto a musical entry to making Sideswap. Like he was like making musical juggling for us, and we were like, dude, this is a 4-2-3. Like, he like kind of accidentally, through making like, oh, you want to do a half beat here and like this, he just like stumbled onto this Sideswap through music, which was crazy. But we needed him to come.
Carry on. Sorry.
We physically needed him to come to the park because some of the stuff he was writing musically, we were like, dude, this is not possible. Like, I don't know how you think we can like physically do this. We were like, dude, come to the park and jam, and we'll like find the midpoint of what's physically possible and what you've written with music.
Yeah.
And then kind of from there, we were like, hang on a second. If you've got 3 people in a musical composition, it's a lot easier to gesture intentionality. Because if Byron and I do like an A-B composition, the audience could interpret that as like, oh, did that guy like cook it? Is he like moving on and not supposed to?
What do you mean now? An A-B?
Like, if we've got like 2 rhythms or the same rhythm, but 2 different sets of actions.
Okay. Yeah.
So like, I'm like tapping like this, right? And then I go.
And you pop back
Byron
again.
does the other side. It could be read as like, oh, they like messed it up or something like this. But when you've got 3 people, then you can go, the 2 on the outside do the same thing and the person on the center. So it's like it just gestures intentionality really clearly and removes that kind of like breaking of immersion when people are watching a thing, I think, with this type of composition.
Cool.
And so then we kind of just like slowly over time inserted the crowbar on Sam, and we're like, oh, what do you think about, no, you could probably be on stage with us for this. And then we got it a little further, and we're like, hey, what do you think? And then the next thing happened. We were making acts completely like with the 3 of us from the Genesis. And then it's just been like a series of residencies and workshops and like doing like a week here with like the lighting designer. And basically that was how we made the meat of the thing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned, Richard, is kind of the different concepts that you worked on over Zoom and figuring out ways and things. So I would like to ask you, Byron, when do you know if a concept is good enough or if you need to just put it aside?
Good question.
And also please explain concept. Like, what is a concept within juggling? That could also be cool.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll first just explain that the overall concept for the show was this term escalate. We wanted the juggling through the show to escalate and in the individual routines escalate and de-escalate. And that was kind of the premise we came up with, because we noticed that really gets a strong audience reaction. Because if you start simple and you kind of like, especially with new concepts, you your audience gets an idea of the thing, and then they get involved with it, and then they really love it, and then you're really impressing them, and then you kind of shock them, and then routine's over. Like, that was a really good way of building like tension with the audience. But like, yeah, as Richard said, like a concept for us was using clubs as instruments, or using balls as instruments, or we use the cathedral rings that are translucent.
Oh yeah.
And like one of the concepts was we would light them from behind, so that you just see the rings and you just see our outlines.
Whoa,
So we have a routine that we just literally call backlit rings, and it's just so the rings look really vibrant, but you can't see the jugglers. So you're just seeing the beautiful patterns of juggling without having to see us. Yeah, but how do we decide? We basically, because we were both in Melbourne during the lockdowns. Melbourne had really long lockdowns, but Richard and I could meet up, as he said. So we had lots of time to explore lots of concepts, and we were also like discussing those concepts every night with him and Mark Douglas, who was managing our company at the time. And we basically went through a series. We probably went through maybe 20 or 30 concepts, and we would just do shallow dives into them. So we'd do like, a couple of days on each one, and would see how much, fruit is to pick from these different ideas. Did that answer everything?
Yeah, so you could actually do a couple of days of shallow dive within 30 concepts. That seems like a lot of work.
We had the time.
Yeah. Wow.
But like just to say as well, like we would do these shallow dives and make the stuff, and then like it would first be like a technical exploration within the bounds of the concept, and then the next step would be to kind of try and make something together. And for example, we had a whole thing where we wanted to do like balls and rings, focusing on like using the negative space of the rings. And it just got to a point.
Negative space. What do you mean with that?
Like the hole in the ring, like throwing the ball through and stuff. And it just got to this point where we're like, you know what? Like outside of doing like a sync routine, which we've kind of done a lot in like working together, there's nothing that's really like popping about this. And then we're like, but we've got like a mountain of technique. So let's turn it into a technique video. So then we just took that like whole kind of concept and body of work, and we're like, okay, that's not like routine appropriate, or it doesn't fit for what we think we want to do for this. And then we just turned into a juggling video instead of trying to like force it into a stage production.
Bloody great video too. What's it called again?
Bring-ins.
Yeah, absolutely cracker. Have you seen it, Ivan?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's some years ago, right?
Through COVID.
Yeah, like, Joe's in it as well.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I've seen it. Yeah.
So when I saw you guys in Edinburgh at the Fringe, Joe was your lighting guy. Is Joe going to be your lightning guy again?
Yeah, well, actually, we had a gig in China last year, and Joe came back from Vegas a month before that and learnt the show. Whoa. And he and I performed the show, him as Richard's role, in China last year. So yeah, Joe knows the show quite intricately, and yeah, he came to Edinburgh literally because it was a really important season for us, and we wanted someone who knew the show up on the lighting desk to help our technician with, cause like we brought our own technician in to do the lighting. We wanted Joe there to do, they did the lighting and Joe was doing the sound, so that made sure that everything was like familiar. Yeah.
Wow.
So how, because I know in Edinburgh it was very, the lighting was such a massive part, it was very precise for the timing and the beats of the lights. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah. So how are you going to find someone at the EJC to do that for you?
Well, Joe's coming.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so Joe's going to be the lead with the lights. Cool.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to EJC, and our lighting designer will send them the current plan of the plot, and hopefully they'll get it close enough, and then when we get there, we can like tighten all the screws on that. And we're hoping it will really pop at EJC, because I think jugglers will obviously love this show and be able to appreciate this show much more than your average audience. So
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be really hype.
Are you going to have the show multiple times or just once? Do you know?
I think we're doing 2, but I've only
times.
heard that. I've only heard that through the grapevine. I haven't heard it directly from EJC.
Also,
Yeah.
do you know anything about the venue? If it's going to be like an open stage tent, or you're not sure yet?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
It will be interesting though. I'm really looking forward to this one.
It's Beast. It's Beast Ivan.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that because I've seen it, it has to be a dark room.
Yeah.
What was the back and forths with the EJC according to that? Does that make sense?
We're not actually. Rich and I don't do the technical discussions really. We probably should, but it goes between our producer, our lighting designer, and the EJC. So
Wow.
we have a technical package that we send out to all venues when we perform. It has to be a blackoutable venue. So
Okay.
yeah. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. This sounds so amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. And I would ask this one last question. What part of your show are you guys most excited to show to the audience?
Without giving too much away.
You go, Byron, and then I'll say mine. Gives me time
Yeah.
to think.
So we made 2 video projects during the creation of Escalate. The other one we called Teacups, where we explored negative space with our body, so like dropping balls here.
Yeah.
And we made a duo routine that we haven't released really any footage of online, where we get to use each other's negative space, which turns out to be way cooler than using your own.
Oh.
And
so we made that.
I can say fucking mega tricks. Absolutely insane. I can't believe this isn't online yet.
Yeah, it's because we have to sell it, Lewis.
Yeah, we gotta sell those tickets, baby.
Yeah. Absolutely mega.
It just makes the show more special, I think, if no one's seen the juggling before.
Yeah.
I want to release more videos, just, it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that routine's really beautiful because we composed it just with Rich and I to silence. And we were like stressing so hard about what we're going to do for music for this routine. We were like speaking with Sam about it. And then eventually he's like, why don't I just play guitar? And we're like, oh yeah. He can just jam. Like initially he was just like kind of jamming while we did it. Like he's not performing it, but this is when we were learning it. And then he was like, okay, I can compose something to this. So we sent him a video of the whole act. And then he uses a reverb effect. So kind of like what he plays echoes later randomly. So he's like playing, and so he'll play a note and it'll go like ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And like it creates this really beautiful atmosphere around this very like atmospheric, beautiful juggling. And it's just the way those 2 things met, the music and the juggling, was just like, oh yes, we've found something special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's
really
my favorite routine.
The pressure off in that piece, because I remember when we were making it, I was like, dude, we're not going to be able to do this consistently to a track, like, because at least at that time, maybe now we could, but just as soon as you know that, like, oh, the music, like, he's watching us and it'll move on when we move on, it made it like, it was like a force multiplier, like so much easier and more like calm to perform, because you didn't have the added pressure of like, we got to do the juggling right, but then also if we stuff up, we got to like, so yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, Richard, is it still this part of the show that you also are the most excited for?
I mean, that was my like knee-jerk reaction, but I think maybe if I had to like choose another piece, so then there's like a little bit of a teaser about what happens in the show. There's another piece that we made, which is a club juggling piece, which we call Fight Club. So the choreography is kind of inspired by like, fighting type stuff, like swinging and like stopping the thing in the air and all this stuff. So we kind of do do a bit of stuff with that in Fight Club, and it's a really fun routine to do from the inside, for me at least. Like, I really enjoy doing it because it's so different to juggling in the sense of like a forced rhythm, how with like you've got to keep the things in the air. Like a lot of the time these things are in our hands staying, because we do maximum 4 clubs in the routine, but we have 4 hands between us. But it still feels like there's like a rhythm that makes sense, and so it doesn't feel like, sometimes when you see someone doing some 2-ball juggling or some 1-ball juggling, and it feels like, because it can stop at any moment technically, it doesn't have that like same thing going on. I feel like Fight Club somehow like jumps over that barrier, even though we have the spare hands. We're making our bodies make it feel like there's always that pressure and forced rhythm, which is really cool.
Wow.
Cool. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much, Byron and Richard, for waking up this early to join this talk. I'm super excited to see this show, and thank you for letting us interview you guys. It has been great.
Thanks for having us. This was great. Good to see you both.
Yeah,
Absolutely mega.
Can't wait for the EJC.
Yeah. It's going to be your first one, Richard, isn't it?
Sorry?
Will this be your first one?
Yeah,
Wow.
dude. Crazy.
And Byron, your third?
Yeah.
Nice.
Amazing.
Good memory.
Okay, guys, we all end up with doing this. Come on, everyone, to the camera.
Explosion. Lights.
Sorry. I think it's 6 road cases and then our 3 bits of luggage. So it's 9 pieces of luggage.
Yeah.
6 road cases.
Is the road cases lights?
No, they're bang on 24 kilos, which is normally the limit for flights.
No, not light.
Lighting equipment.
They are light. Are they light?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just hold this ball of light. No, yes.
Through making like, oh, you want to do a half beat here and like this, he just like stumbled onto this, side swap through music, which was crazy. But we needed him to come. Two rhythms, or the same rhythm, but 2 different sets of actions.
Okay. Yeah.
So like, I'm like tapping like this, right? And then I go,
and he popped back
Byron
again.
does the other side. It could be read as like, oh, they like messed it up or something like this. But when you've got 3 people,
When do you know if a concept is good enough, or if you need to just put it aside?
Good question.
And also, please explain concept.
we're like, okay, that's not like routine appropriate or it doesn't fit for what we think we want to do for this, and then we just turn it into a juggling video instead of trying to like force it into.
We called teacups, where we explored negative space with our body, so like dropping balls here. And we made a duo routine that we haven't released really any footage of. We called teacups, where we explored negative space with our body, so like dropping balls here. And we made a duo routine that we haven't released really any footage of online, where we get to use each other's negative space, which turns out to be way cooler than using your own.
And
so we made that.
I can say, fucking mega tricks. Absolutely insane. I can't believe this isn't online yet.
Yeah, it's because we have to sell it, Lewis.
Yeah, we gotta sell those tickets, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just makes the show more special, I think, if no one's seen the juggling before.
Yeah.